MailGuard provides all our services through a single management console. So whether it's email filtering or our email archive, or whether it's the web browser filtering, it's all managed through a single console. So you don't have to remember to log on to multiple places in order to manage your services. MailGuard has 8 products, and I'll talk quickly through them before we jump into the management console and look at a couple of them in more detail. We've already spoken about our email filtering, which stops spam, viruses and malware entering the business. It can also stop other things according to business rules, content that you don't want entering your business. Our mail filter product spools email that's going to your organisation for up to 5 days. So in the event of a mail server outage, we're not bouncing email back to your customers. Sometimes, though, that's not enough. And so our email continuity service comes next in the list, and our email continuity provides you with the ability to read and write email during an outage. We keep 14 days rolling email in there, ready for you to have a problem with your mail server, and then you can switch everybody across to using our continuity service. All they need to do is find an internet connection, which can include on their phone or the local internet cafe, and your business is effectively continuing to run. Our image monitoring service sits on our email filtering platform and provides that monitoring level of illicit images going in and out of the business. We look for 12 different characteristics on each email, which means we're not just looking for skin tones, we're also looking for things like contrast curves and shape curves, looking for those images that you don't want in your business because of the legal risk. We also offer mailbox hosting, because if there's one thing that a business doesn't need to have, it's their own on-site mail server, with all the problems, with all the upgrade problems, with all the maintenance that requires, not to mention the software subscription costs. We provide mailbox hosting in the cloud. We also have an archive and discovery service. When we first built this, we built it as an archive service that was going to keep your business's email for 7 years or more, depending on your requirements. And it was going to store it all in the cloud and make it easy to get. But what we've discovered since we built that is getting it out easily has become the primary reason for people taking on this service. We all know that searching for email within Outlook or Thunderbird is very, very difficult. Our discovery service on this makes it easy to find email, no matter when it was sent or received. Our web filtering provides you protection against the nasties that come in via the web, but also gives you the ability to apply business rules, such as when you're going to let people hop on social networks like Facebook. Our CRM integration tool makes sure that Salesforce is updated with all communication going in and out of an organisation. This means your salespeople know where the relationship is at, not just with the sales team, but with the accounts team or the support team as well. Our website monitoring tool monitors your website to make sure your customers are not being infected by viruses that have been hacked into your website, to make sure they're not seeing spam that shouldn't be there, and also to make sure that the sites you're linking to are just as clean as yours. Let's hop over now into the management console and get a deeper understanding on a couple of these products. As soon as you log in, you can see the power of the MailGuard management console. This is our management portal, which lets you customize the system to work the way that you work. You can reduce the size of widgets. From the library here, we can grab out extra widgets. We can grab out something for a different service. We can set things up to work exactly the way we want them to work. This gives us the screen that helps us get on with the job as soon as we've logged into the system. Let's start by having a look at email filtering policies. Policies can be applied at 3 different levels: on the individual, on the entire domain, or on the entire company, which gives you real control over exactly what happens at each different level. Here's a list of policies that apply to the entire company. From here, it's easy to pick up a policy and move it up and down to get exactly the action that you would like to take. All policies are applied from the top down. As soon as we've found a match, we stop matching further policies. Let's go and add a new policy. We're going to add a policy to stop outbound Excel files. We give the policy a name so we can find it later. Next, we choose whether we want the policy to apply to inbound or outbound email. In this case, we want it to apply to outbound email. It's the email that we're sending that we want to make sure that nobody's sending out sensitive Excel documents. It's going to be a content filter, but we can choose to create virus filters, size-based filters, spam filters, our offensive language list, or our image policy filtering. In this case, it's a content filter. And we're going to make it fairly simple. We only want to match one thing, and that's the attachment type. We're going to check for the attachment type be an Excel document. It's as simple as that. Now we choose what we want to do with that message. We're going to quarantine the message so that it can be released if it turns out that this Excel document is allowed to leave the building. We're going to tell the sender immediately that this message has been quarantined. This gives them the ability to immediately go to the company administrator and request that it be released. We're going to alert the administrator, but rather than tell him every time something's matched, we're going to tell the administrator at 9 AM and 5 PM that we've caught this message. And that's it. We now have the new policy in our filter list, and we can move it up and make it more important than any of the other policies in there. Now let's have a look at what happens when a message is quarantined. Here's the quarantine interface. Let's find the most recent 50 messages that have been quarantined. From the result list here, we can do various things. We can view the message that's been quarantined. We can send a copy to the person that's logged in. We can release it so it goes to the intended recipient. We can delete it out of the quarantine once we've reviewed it so that we don't have to see this message each time we have a look. The select button at the end here allows us to select more than one message, which we can then use the delete button at the top here and delete more than one message at a time. Let's go ahead and delete one message out of the quarantine. We're asked to confirm whether we actually do want to delete the message. We pick that we do, and you'll see that it happens right there on screen. There's no reloading of the page, confusing us to where we're up to or anything like that. We're able to quickly delete that message out of the quarantine and get on with our job. The View button here lets us get some insight into the message. Let's have a look at this message. So we can see some metadata here about the message. We can see the subject, the sender, and recipients. Then we get a message preview. This is the raw message itself, so we can see the headers and the content as it comes down there and get some idea of the message that's been quarantined. Down the bottom, we've got the reason that the message has been quarantined. We can see that this scored 42 out of 10. That means that once it hits the 10, it's going to get quarantined, and this message hit as high as 42. After reviewing the message, we can then take an action knowing that we are taking the correct action. In this case, we're going to delete this message. Now let's take a look at the Safeguard Mail Archive. The search interface is as simple as entering a search term such as newsletter, selecting the period in which you want to search and clicking the search button. Very quickly the results are displayed for us. We see here the most recent messages in which the word newsletter appears in the subject or the content, possibly the sender or the recipient, somewhere in the email. We're not very specific at this stage. If we want to get more specific, the advanced search lets us get there. Let's only look for messages that have the word newsletter in the subject. And here we find we have 2 messages. We can now choose to preview the message or get a copy sent to the logged in user, or we can click this zip button here. What this does is puts this message into a zip file for us to download. That zip file can be built up as we go. Let's do another search, this time for the word MailGuard in the subject. And here we have a number of messages that have been archived. We can keep adding these to the zip as we do multiple searches to build up the case that we're trying to build. In the zip manager here, we can check the contents of the zip and see those 3 messages. From here, it's easy to remove a message from the zip file itself, to empty it, or to download the zip. The files in the zip are organized in folder hierarchy according to who sent or received the message. Each of the files is an EML file, or an RFC 822 if you'd rather call it that can be opened in pretty much any mail program, including Outlook and Thunderbird. Last, let's have a look at the web filtering policies. We can see that the interface is exactly the same as the mail filtering. All our services exist in a single console with a single login to make it easy to manage what's going on. Let's use web filtering to do something that we see quite often. Let's stop Facebook being used outside lunchtime. Once again, the first thing is to give the policy a name. We then choose that we want to set a condition based around the web address, and that is if the web address contains facebook.com. There's a number of other options here. We'll come back to those in just a minute. If somebody attempts to go to Facebook, what do we want to do? We can choose from a number of options here. Let's block the user. And it's that simple. web filtering users are now blocked from using Facebook. But that's not quite what we wanted to do. We wanted to allow people to use Facebook at lunchtime. So let's add in another rule. Again, giving it a name. Once again, we want to match Facebook. But we're going to add another condition now, and that is the time of day. And we're going to say if the time of day is between 12 noon and 1 p.m, and the web address contains Facebook, we're going to allow use. But what we find is now that our allowing use of Facebook at lunchtime is falling below our blocking of Facebook, which means it won't be honoured. So let's pick it up and move it to where we want. So now as we go through the policies, we'll hit allowing Facebook at lunchtime before we hit the blocking of Facebook. But hang on a sec. Facebook isn't enough. Let's have a look at how we can block more than just Facebook, because what we really want to do is block all social media sites. That's why we've got a category here. So by using the category, we can block virtual community sites, not just Facebook. Let's remove the Facebook option. The other policies, we've got time of day, which we looked at before, file type, which looks at the actual kind of file, which is similar to email attachments, the web address we've used, the file size, so we can create blocking around large files, the text content of a file, whether the file's a virus, we can look at category, which we're doing at the moment. We can create rules around always matching, which you can read more about in the user manual, the file extension, whether it's a phishing attempt. We can even set up user quotas so that each user's only got a certain amount of data they can use in a month. So now we've changed it to blocking virtual community sites. We should update the name and save it. In our current setup, we're blocking all social media but allowing Facebook at lunchtime. You can see that this gives you real power over exactly what's going on in your organisation. I'm sure you'll agree that MailGuard services give you the control and the power to get done the things you need to get done. If you've got any questions at all, feel free to email an expert. Email us at expert@mailguard.com.au and we'd be happy to answer any questions you've got. Thanks for your time.